All right, hello everyone. And this is going to be part 2 of our data analysis chapter. And in this case, so in the previous video, we looked at graphs, trying to get a better understanding of how to read graphs and answer questions about the data. And what we're going to do for this video is you're still going to be learning to read graphs, especially in the homework, and as you practice, the better it will or easier it will become. But we're also going to look at different types of graphs and how we can create them ourselves. So we're going to talk about the frequency distribution, okay? It's a set of data listed with their frequencies, meaning we take the observed values and how the frequency of occurrences, meaning how many times did this occur in this particular number. And I think the best way to do this is just to kind of show you with an example. Suppose a teacher gives a quiz, and out of 10 possible points, the class of 25 made the following scores. These are your scores, okay, the teacher's scores from the quiz for 25 students. And if we wanted to create what's called a frequency distribution, then what we would do is we would create a chart. For example, what we're looking at here are scores. So I put scores on the left. And then on the right is what we call the frequency. Meaning, how many times did we see that score? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is look at what's the lowest score. The lowest score is 0, and the highest score looks like 10, which it says out of 10 possible points. So I'm going to do one for every number that they could possibly have scored on this quiz. Now, the frequency is where I go here, and this is where you got to be very careful, is you might miss a number, but you want to count how many students got a 0. So I look, 1, 2, that's all I see. I only see 2. Okay, so I'm going to use a different color for that. And then I look how many students got a 1 on the quiz, and I only see 1. How many got a 2? So I'm looking each row very carefully, and I see 1 person that got a 2 on the quiz. And this is how you do the frequency. And so again, you look to see how many got a 3. And I don't see any 3s, so that would be a 0. And yes, you could have a frequency of 0. How many got a 4? 1, 2. All right, how many scored a 5? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then how many scored a 6? I see 1, 2, 3. And then 7, we have 1, 2. How many scored an 8? There's quite a few of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I missed one there. 5. See, I was saying it's very easy to miss. 5. How many scored a 9? I see 1, 2, 3. And how many scored a 10? 1. I only see 2 10s in there. Okay. Now, that is your frequency distribution, where you took the scores and you counted how many people got what. Now, you can always see if you counted them all. What you want to do at the end is add those up and make sure that they add up to 25. If they don't, then that means you must have missed a number, and so just go back and review that. And that's your frequency distribution. All right. Now let's go down a little bit more. Oh, real quick, something called a modal class, so if you hear that word, it is the class with the greatest frequency. So let's go back to this actually. Let's go back to this example real quick. And when we're talking about the modal class, what I'm looking for is the class that had the biggest, the largest frequency. So looking over here, that would be the 8. We had 5 people that scored an 8. That's the most. So here, my modal, class is a score of 8 because they had the most or the highest frequency. Now, you can have more than one modal class. If you had, let's say 8 scored 5, right? The 5 people scored an 8, and then you had 5 people that scored a 5, then you would have 2 modal classes, 8 and 5. So just don't worry, you can have more than one answer for that one because sometimes you have the same highest frequency. Now let's go down to another example. 30 automobiles were tested for fuel efficiency in miles per gallon. And the frequency distribution here shown was obtained. Construct a histogram using the data. Now, let me explain a couple things. We're looking at miles per gallon, but notice it's in a range. They didn't do it by just, 8 miles per gallon, 9 miles per gallon, 10 miles per gallon. They put it in a range. In other words, 3 cars ranged between 8 and 12. 5 cars ranged between 13 and 17 miles per gallon. When we want to do a histogram, now here's the difference with a histogram. You want your bars to be touching. Now, if I were to do a frequency, right, the data chart, I would have my bars not touching. With a histogram, they're going to, and I'll show you what I mean when we draw this. What we're looking at is we want to create a midpoint because we're given a range. Now, what is a midpoint? A midpoint, you literally are going to take the highest plus the lowest number and divide that by 2. Okay? Meaning, and I'll just show you how we're going to find that. All right, so we're going to take let me just show you over here. Let's see, I don't want to make up room, so let me just come over to the side. To find the midpoint, I would take, for the first one, I would take 8 plus 12, all right, divide that by 2. So I do that on my calculator. I get 20 divided by 2, that's 10. So over here, the midpoint for my first class would be considered 10. Then I do it again for 13 to 17. So 13 plus 17 divided by 2, and that gives me 15. Now here's the thing, you don't have to do this for every single one. I'll tell you why. Once you see how far this goes, it goes from 10 to 15, the rest are going to be the same because it has to be evenly distributed. We can't go from 10 to 15 and then to 30. That would distort our graph and distort the data. So that tells me that my midpoints for the next 3 classes will be 20, 25, and 30. Okay, now we can construct our histogram. And let me show you what we're going to do first. And let me do that in blue. We're going to start here with the graph, and I'm going to look at my midpoints. And those go from 10 to 30. But I'm going to look at the number of cars because that is my frequency here. So miles per gallon, that's like what we call our x-axis. That's going to be here, miles per gallon, but we're going to do the midpoint. And the y-axis, that would be the frequency or the number of cars. So in other words, right here, this is going to be the number of cars. And normally I would probably write it horizontally, but it's very difficult for me to write on this device horizontally. But this is the number of cars. This is miles per gallon. Now I'm ready to start. Well, start my axis. Look at the number of cars. It goes from 3 to 15. Now, this is always going to be my 0, the origin right here. That's 0. It goes from all the way up to 15. What I want to do is come up with a scale. And honestly, you can do anything. You could decide you're going to go by 1s or 2s. This goes up to 15, so I'm going to go by 3s. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And there is no one right answer with this. You could have said, well, I want to go by 2s. And you do 2, 4, 6, 8, all the way up to 16. It's up to you how you do it. Because it went up to 15, I just chose to do it by 3s. Okay, now we do one at a time. So I need to evenly space out my midpoint. So I have 10, 15, 20, 25. And if you're doing this by hand, it won't be exactly even, but your goal is to get as even as possible. Now I create my graph. Looking at the 10 midpoint, the number of cars was 3. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a bar and try to evenly get it so that the 10 is literally halfway to my graph. And this range would be from 8 to 12, with the midpoint being 10. Now I do the 15. That had a frequency of 5. So I'm going to go up, but like I was saying, the bars are going to touch with a histogram. And so I try to keep it just under the 6. And then we keep doing this. So the 20 went up to 15. That's going to be my highest one. I'm going to tell you it's not going to be the straightest because I'm trying to draw this by hand. That's what I get. Okay, so not that even, but you can see the point. Then the 25 was 5, so that's going to actually match the one we just did here. And then the 30 goes back down to, oh, this one was 2, so this one's going to be a little lower than the first one that we did. So I'm going to go to here. All right, what we just created here is a histogram using midpoints. And again, this would tell me this ranges from 8 to 12. This ranges from 13 to 17, and so forth. Each bar would start a new number. All right, now let's talk about a frequency polygon. This is similar to a histogram, okay, but instead of using bars for the frequency, a point is used and we connect the dots. Basically, we use a line to connect the dots. So we're going to go ahead and do the example we just did, which is with the gas, the miles per hour. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw the same exact graph that we just did. Okay, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And same thing here, our midpoint. So we had 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. All right. Here's the difference. We're not going to draw bars this time. That would be our histogram. This is a frequency polygon. So I do the numbers with a dot first, or point. So we had the number 3, remember, with miles per gallon here. Then the 15 was 5. I somehow remember all of this. The 20 was 15. You could go back in your notes, but I don't want to move for the video. Then we went back down to 5. And then remember the last one was 2, so I'm going to go a little bit below the other one. This is what you do. You always start from the origin and you connect the dots. Remember that as a kid, if you ever did that, that was not very straight, but it is what it is. And then you go back down. Okay, this is what we call a frequency polygon as opposed to the histogram. And that's it. You just draw and connect the dots, and then you've got it. And that actually ends part 2 for the visual representations of data and also how to create your own data.